As the conflict in Ukraine grinds on a complex tapestry of military maneuvers, information warfare, international responses, and long-term societal challenges continues to unfold, painting a vivid picture of a transforming geopolitical landscape. Recent developments highlight Russia's persistent offensive efforts, the Kremlin's tightening grip on its information space, sustained Western support for Kyiv, and the grim specter of post-conflict organized crime. On the battlefields, Russian forces persist with localized advances, notably conducting an at least platoon-sized mechanized assault in the Toretsk direction on June 17, as reported by the Institute for the Study of War (ISW). Geolocated footage corroborates these movements, showing Russian forces pushing west of Yablonivka with a mix of armored and motorized vehicles, including all-terrain vehicles (ATVs). Ukrainian military observer Yuri Butasov noted a reinforced company-sized assault near Kostiantynivka, where Ukrainian forces reportedly destroyed 15 pieces of heavy equipment and 8 motorized vehicles. This tactical shift, with Russian forces increasingly relying on civilian vehicles, ATVs, and motorcycles for assaults since winter 2024 to 2025, is likely a direct consequence of effective Ukrainian drone capabilities and Russia's dwindling supply of traditional armored vehicles, a trend that has even prompted the Russian Ministry of Defense (MOD) to formally integrate motorcycle usage into offensive operations. Beyond Toretsk, Russian forces have also recently advanced in northern Sumy and Kharkiv oblasts, including within the Vovchansk aggregate plant and near Chasiv Yar, where they likely seized the southern settlement of Stepaki. Despite these gains, a Ukrainian soldier in the Pokrovsk direction reported that Russian forces are resorting to multiple waves of small group motorcycle assaults to overwhelm Ukrainian positions, a tactic that, while agile, presents new challenges for Ukrainian drone and artillery targeting. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has approved new indigenous weapon systems, including the Shablaya Mk-19M remote-controlled combat module and the Volonyaka bomber/logistics drone, enhancing both precision strike and frontline resupply capabilities. Beyond the front lines, the Kremlin is actively leveraging events like the ongoing St. Petersburg International Economic Forum (SPIEF) to consolidate control over its domestic information space and prepare Russian society for a prolonged war. An internal document obtained by Russian opposition outlet Meduza reportedly instructs state and pro-Kremlin media to focus SPIEF coverage on themes of social optimism and national progress, such as new civilian vehicle presentations, flag-raising ceremonies for fishing vessels, and infrastructure connections, rather than traditional foreign investment. This carefully curated narrative aims to project an image that everything is moving forward, a stark contrast to the reality of the war. Concurrently, internet outages around St. Petersburg during SPIEF, similar to those during Victory Day celebrations in May, suggest deliberate efforts by Russian authorities to limit critical reporting and maintain informational dominance. The Kremlin is also using SPIEF to project its narratives externally, with spokesperson Dmitry Peskov announcing that President Vladimir Putin would meet with journalists from unfriendly countries in the global south to convey Russia's viewpoint, a move consistent with past efforts to legitimize and spread pro-Kremlin rhetoric internationally. Internally, the crackdown on critical voices continues, exemplified by the detention of Mikhail Polinkov, administrator of the Soldatskaya Pravda Telegram channel, on unclear charges, though his associates suggest it relates to his criticism of propagandists or efforts to uncover Russian military losses. In response to Russia's ongoing aggression, Ukraine's Western partners continue to provide substantial military and financial aid while imposing new sanctions. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney recently announced a significant package of $2 billion CAD, roughly $1.4 billion, for military purchases, and a $2.3 billion Canadian dollars, roughly $1.6 billion loan for Ukrainian infrastructure reconstruction, financed and repaid through future profits from seized Russian assets via the G7 Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration Loans mechanism. This was accompanied by Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand's announcement of sanctions against 77 Russian individuals, 39 entities, and 201 vessels in Russia's shadow fleet, specifically targeting Russia's attempts to circumvent international restrictions. Australia has followed suit, imposing sanctions on 60 vessels in Russia's shadow fleet, marking its first direct action against this critical component of Moscow's war economy. The European Union and United Kingdom have also announced additional sanctions across Russia's financial, military, industrial, and energy sectors, signaling a sustained international effort to cripple Russia's war machine. Furthermore, the EU is reportedly considering moving approximately €200 billion $229 billion of frozen Russian money into a new fund that would take more financial risks to generate greater earnings for Ukraine, shifting from safe low-yield investments. The human cost of the conflict remains devastating. A recent Russian missile strike on a 9-story apartment building in Kyiv on June 17 resulted in 28 civilian deaths and at least 134 injuries, prompting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to visit the site and reiterate his call for increased pressure on Moscow to agree to a ceasefire. Kyiv stated that Russia has been rejecting a US-backed ceasefire proposal for over 100 days, demanding ultimatums instead of engaging in unconditional talks. Amidst the relentless fighting, a rare glimmer of diplomatic progress emerged with a new round of prisoner-of-war POW swaps between Kyiv and Moscow. Following earlier talks in Istanbul where both sides agreed to exchange wounded soldiers and those under 25, and Moscow promised to return the bodies of 6,000 Ukrainian soldiers. Looking ahead, the long-term ramifications of this protracted conflict extend beyond the immediate military and political spheres. A report from the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime (Geopolitical) titled "Crime After War: Post-Conflict Organized Crime Dynamics in Russia and Ukraine" underscores the critical importance of understanding how organized crime will evolve in both nations in the aftermath of the war. The immense disruption, economic strain, proliferation of weapons, and breakdown of traditional governance structures inherent in prolonged conflict create fertile ground for illicit activities to flourish. As the world grapples with the immediate demands of the conflict, the future of criminal dynamics in Russia and Ukraine represents a significant yet often overlooked challenge that will demand sustained attention and coordinated international efforts to mitigate. The interplay of battlefield realities, Kremlin strategies, international interventions, and the looming shadow of organized crime paints a complex and evolving picture, indicating that the consequences of this conflict will resonate for years, if not decades, to come. The battlefields of Ukraine have become an undeniable crucible for military innovation, particularly in the realm of unmanned aerial systems and artificial intelligence. What began as a conflict heavily reliant on off-the-shelf civilian drones has rapidly escalated into a sophisticated technological arms race where every new deployment pushes the boundaries of warfare, from tactical engagements to strategic implications. The latest developments underscore this dynamic evolution, revealing both groundbreaking applications and the persistent challenges in integrating cutting-edge tech into the chaos of combat. A recent incident on June 17, 2025, vividly illustrates the evolving role of drones beyond mere targeting. Ukrainian defenders from the 414th Separate Brigade of Unmanned Systems, specifically the Magyar's Birds unit, achieved a remarkable feat, capturing a Russian infantryman using a first-person view FPV drone. The drone crew commander, known by the alias Pain, was reportedly en route to a target when the Russian soldier signaled surrender by raising his hands. Instead of engaging, the pilot chose to escort the captive via drone directly to Ukrainian positions, where he was handed over to a neighboring infantry unit. This marks the first time the Magyar's Birds unit has facilitated a prisoner capture using an FPV drone, a striking example of humanitarian application in a conflict zone. This incident builds on previous, albeit less direct, instances, such as a Russian soldier surrendering to a Ukrainian drone near Bakhmut in 2023. And 9 Russian troops laying down arms to a loudspeaker-equipped drone in February 2025. Such events highlight the psychological impact and versatile utility of drones, transforming them from purely offensive weapons into tools for unconventional operations. However, the broader integration of artificial intelligence into these unmanned systems, particularly for autonomous targeting, remains a complex and often challenging endeavor. Despite early optimism, machine vision, a form of AI allowing drones to identify and strike targets autonomously without continuous operator monitoring or vulnerability to jamming, has not yet delivered the game-changing breakthrough many anticipated. Stacy Pettijohn, a senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security, notes that performance has been limited, a sentiment echoed by the Institute for the Study of War, which stated that promises of an immediate AI drone revolution are premature as of June 2025. Key obstacles include poor camera quality, difficulties in hitting moving targets, and inconsistent software performance. Ukrainian army units often prefer more reliable alternatives such as optical fiber drones that maintain a physical link, ensuring consistent control and data transmission. Ukrainian developers are relentlessly refining AI-controlled drones, with over 100 companies actively working on such guidance systems. Yet the path has been fraught with setbacks. Viktor Sakarchuk, CEO of Twist Robotics, an AI drone developer, explained that large-scale use of AI-guided drones by Ukrainian forces saw a sharp decline in interest within 3 months of its inception in March 2024. This was largely due to a producer flooding the market with low-quality, cheaply made systems that performed poorly and came with no training, leading the military to conclude that the guidance didn't work. This experience underscores the critical need for robust testing, quality control, and comprehensive user training for advanced military technologies. Sakarchuk emphasized that successful deployment requires direct interaction with end users throughout the development process, incorporating frontline experience to understand practical limitations and application features. His firm utilizes a mix of real and synthetic data, including their Oberei simulator, to train visual AI systems before fine-tuning them on physical drones. Rostislav Olenkin of Twist Robotics further stressed the importance of autonomous navigation for drones to reach their target areas effectively. Meanwhile, Russia is also making significant strides in its drone capabilities, particularly in integrating AI. Ukrainian authorities recently discovered the first AI-equipped radio-controlled Russian Shahed drone, a significant advancement. Serhiy Flashby-Skresnov, a specialist in military radio technology, confirmed that this Shahed drone is fitted with a camera and AI module and a radio control system, enabling control from up to 150 kilometers away from the Russian border or front line, with the potential for greater distances via airborne repeaters. This development suggests a move towards more resilient and adaptable long-range strike capabilities. Furthermore, Shahed drones have undergone several modifications over the past year, including a significant upgrade to their warheads, increasing explosive payload from 50 to 90 kilograms, and some even incorporating Starlink terminals. Open-source intelligence indicates Russia is also expanding its Shahed production capacity at the Alabuga Special Economic Zone in Tatarstan. Adding to this, Russia has been observed testing drone swarms equipped with AI and machine learning designed to identify military vehicles and evade interceptor drones, with some units featuring 4G telecommunications modems for data transmission and operator control. Herman Smetanyk, Ukraine's Minister of Strategic Industries, noted last year that swarms of drones are an advanced technology that will allow the military to stay not one but several steps ahead of the enemy, a vision both sides are clearly pursuing. The cost remains a significant barrier for widespread adoption of advanced AI drones. Soldier Dmytro of Ukraine's 413th Separate Battalion of Unmanned Systems noted, "We rarely see last-mile AI drones on the battlefield because they're just too expensive right now. Adding advanced chips and extra cameras drives up the cost significantly. I'd rather have 3 standard drones than one with onboard AI." This highlights a pragmatic trade-off between cutting-edge technology and sheer volume, especially in a conflict with high attrition rates. While AI promises to raise drone hit rates significantly, Max Makarchuk, AI lead for defense tech accelerator Brave One, expected accuracy to rise to around 80% from the current 30 to 50% or as low as 10% for novices. The current performance and cost issues continue to temper expectations. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has unequivocally demonstrated that drones in their myriad forms are no longer supplementary tools but central components of modern warfare. The recent capture of a soldier by an FPV drone showcases an unprecedented humanitarian application, while the persistent albeit challenging development of AI-driven autonomy reflects a relentless drive towards overcoming electronic warfare countermeasures and enhancing precision. as both sides continue to invest heavily in this technological arms race pushing the boundaries of machine vision, swarm intelligence and remote control. The future of warfare will undoubtedly be shaped by these unmanned systems. The critical questions moving forward will revolve around achieving cost-effectiveness, ensuring reliability in diverse combat environments, and navigating the profound ethical implications of increasingly autonomous weapon systems. In a series of recent diplomatic overtures and statements from the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Russian President Vladimir Putin has signaled a complex and arguably contradictory readiness for dialogue on multiple fronts, even as his nation continues to navigate global tensions. His pronouncements made during an overnight meeting with international news agencies on Wednesday touched upon the protracted conflict in Ukraine, the volatile situation between Israel and Iran, and Russia's evolving international partnerships. Central to Putin's remarks was his conditional openness to engaging with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He stated he was ready to meet him, but only if it is some kind of final phase of negotiations. This willingness, however, comes with a significant caveat. Putin reiterated his assertion that Zelensky lost his legitimacy when his term concluded last year, a claim vehemently rejected by Ukraine and its allies, who point to Ukrainian law prohibiting elections during wartime. Despite this, Putin emphasized Russia's readiness for substantive talks on the principles of settlement, noting that previous discussions had yielded results like prisoner and fallen soldier body exchanges. Beyond Kyiv, Putin extended an olive branch, albeit a thorny one, to Berlin. He indicated he would take a call from German Chancellor Friedrich Merz should he wish to speak, telling the German news agency dpa, "We are always open to this." Yet this openness is shadowed by Russia's perception of Germany's role in the Ukraine conflict. Putin explicitly stated he does not view Germany as neutral, citing its supply of tanks to Ukraine as direct participation in hostilities, thus disqualifying it as a mediator. He further warned that Germany's potential provision of Taurus cruise missiles to Kyiv would constitute direct involvement, though he maintains such weapons would not halt Russian advances across the Ukrainian frontline. These comments mark Putin's first public remarks concerning Chancellor Merz since the latter assumed his position in May. Shifting focus to the Middle East, Putin also put forward Moscow as a potential mediator in the escalating tensions between Israel and Iran. He suggested a settlement could be brokered that would allow Tehran to pursue a peaceful nuclear program while simultaneously addressing Israeli security concerns. These proposals, he noted, had been shared with Iran, Israel, and the United States. However, the prospect of Russian mediation has already met with skepticism, with former U.S. President Donald Trump, for instance, rejecting any Russian role. This stance is perhaps unsurprising given the close economic and political ties between Moscow and Tehran, a relationship underscored by Iran's supply of drones utilized in attacks on Ukrainian cities. The geopolitical stakes for Russia in the region are considerable. A regime change in Iran, as advocated by Israel, could significantly diminish Russia's influence, particularly following the ouster of its ally Bashar Assad in Syria last December. Acknowledging the delicate issue, Putin still expressed belief that a solution could be found, though he notably refused to entertain a hypothetical scenario involving the killing of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. These diplomatic soundings from St. Petersburg are not isolated. They come against a backdrop of Russia actively cultivating and reinforcing alliances beyond its traditional Western adversaries. Only hours prior to his remarks on Ukraine and the Middle East, Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping reportedly held a phone call where they jointly condemned Israeli strikes against Iran, signaling a united front on a critical regional issue. Furthermore, the forum itself served as a platform for deepening ties, with Putin meeting Indonesian President-elect Prabowo Subianto, underscoring Russia's ongoing efforts to strengthen relationships with countries in the global south and project a broader diplomatic footprint amidst continued international isolation from Western nations. The totality of Putin's recent statements paints a picture of a Russia seeking to assert its influence across multiple geopolitical theaters, offering dialogue where it perceives strategic advantage, while simultaneously maintaining a firm stance on its core security interests and rejecting external interference.
The coming months will reveal whether these conditional overtures and strategic realignments can translate into tangible de-escalation or merely serve to recalibrate the complex and volatile international landscape.
Amidst a brutal fourth year of full-scale conflict, a complex tapestry of diplomatic overtures and relentless escalation is unfolding, painting a stark picture of a world grappling with persistent geopolitical tensions. Just yesterday, Russian President Vladimir Putin signaled a surprising readiness for dialogue, expressing openness to talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. However, these conciliatory remarks emerged concurrently with a devastating Russian missile barrage on Kyiv, which Ukrainian officials condemned as a clear rejection of peace and a brutal continuation of hostilities. Speaking on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum during an overnight meeting with international news agencies, President Putin stated his willingness to engage with both European leaders. He indicated that he would take a call from German Chancellor Merz if one were made, telling German news agency DPA, "We are always open to this." Yet this offer came with a significant caveat. Putin explicitly stated he does not view Germany as a neutral party in the conflict, given its supply of tanks and other military aid to Ukraine, which he deems direct participation in the hostilities. He further warned that Germany's potential supply of Taurus cruise missiles to Kyiv would constitute direct involvement in the war, though he maintains such weapons would not halt Russian advances along the front line. Regarding President Zelensky, Putin expressed readiness to meet, but only if it marked a final phase of negotiations. This conditional readiness was immediately undercut by his reiteration that Zelensky had lost his legitimacy following the expiration of his presidential term last year, an assertion firmly rejected by Kyiv and its allies, who point to Ukrainian law banning elections during wartime. Despite these claims, Putin insisted, "We are ready for substantive talks on the principles of settlement," noting that previous rounds of talks had facilitated prisoner and fallen soldier exchanges, a rare point of mutual agreement. However, the reality on the ground in Ukraine starkly contradicted the Kremlin's diplomatic rhetoric. Just hours before Putin's comments were widely reported, a massive Russian missile strike devastated a 9-story apartment building in Kyiv's Solomyansky district. The deadliest assault on the capital this year, the attack claimed 28 lives across the city and left 142 injured, with 23 fatalities occurring at the directly hit apartment block. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who visited the scene with senior officials, laid flowers and paid tribute to the victims, asserting on Telegram that this attack is a reminder to the world that Russia rejects a ceasefire and chooses killing. He urged greater international pressure on Moscow to feel the real cost of the war, highlighting that Tuesday's bombardment was part of a sweeping barrage involving over 440 drones and 32 missiles, which Zelensky described as one of the largest bombardments since Russia's illegal full-scale invasion began in February 2022. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha echoed this sentiment, directly refuting Russia's claims of willingness to end the war. On X, formerly Twitter, Sybiha wrote that it had been exactly 100 days since Ukraine unconditionally accepted the U.S. peace proposal to completely ceasefire, put an end to the killing, and move forward with a genuine peace process. 100 days of Russia escalating terror against Ukraine rather than ending it. He concluded Ukraine remains committed to peace. Unfortunately, Russia continues to choose war, disregarding U.S. efforts to end the killing. This comes as U.S.-led peace efforts have struggled to gain traction, with Russian President Putin effectively rejecting a 30-day ceasefire offer from U.S. President Donald Trump, conditioning it on a halt to Ukraine's mobilization and a freeze on Western arms supplies. Furthermore, the intensifying conflict in the Middle East and ongoing U.S. trade tariffs have regrettably diverted significant global attention from Ukraine's urgent pleas for increased diplomatic and economic pressure on Moscow. Beyond Ukraine, President Putin also extended an offer to mediate the escalating tensions between Israel and Iran. He proposed that Moscow could facilitate a settlement allowing Tehran to pursue a peaceful nuclear program while simultaneously addressing Israeli security concerns, noting that these proposals had been shared with Iran, Israel, and the United States. This offer, however, faces significant hurdles. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has already rejected any Russian role in mediation, and Moscow's close economic and political ties with Tehran, including Iran's supply of drones used in attacks on Ukrainian cities, complicate its position as an impartial mediator. Putin acknowledged it was a delicate issue but expressed confidence that a solution could be found, even as he sidestepped questions about potential Israeli actions against Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The stakes for Russia are high, as any regime change in Iran, such as that advocated by Israel, would likely deal a major blow to Moscow's regional influence, particularly following the recent ouster of its ally Bashar Assad in Syria. As the war in Ukraine enters its fourth year, these contradictory signals from Moscow, peace overtures juxtaposed with deadly missile strikes, underscore the profound complexities of the conflict. The international community faces the ongoing challenge of maintaining pressure on Russia while exploring any genuine avenues for de-escalation, even as global attention is fragmented by other crises. The coming months will undoubtedly test the resolve of Ukraine's allies and the efficacy of diplomatic efforts, all against the backdrop of an intensifying summer offensive and the enduring human cost of war.